This raised bed comparison will save you $158 over 10 years, because depending on which material you pick, that $300 either buys you a decade of growing food with zero maintenance, or it buys you a slow, rotting headache that ends up costing you $458 before the decade is over. Today, we are putting the 3 most popular raised bed materials through a 10-year comparison: galvanized steel, western red cedar, and composite lumber. We are looking at real corrosion science, actual wood pathology, the chemistry happening inside your soil, and a cost analysis that completely flips the "which one is cheapest" conversation on its head. Before we dive into these materials, let me address pressure-treated lumber, the material many people ask about. We're excluding pressure-treated lumber from this comparison because the modern copper-based preservatives can create soil chemistry issues for vegetable gardens, and the material requires the same maintenance schedule as untreated cedar without the natural rot resistance. For food production, it's simply not competitive with these 3 options. And this is the part that blew my mind during the research. The material everyone assumes is the budget-friendly option turns out to be the most expensive choice over 10 years, by a wide margin. We will get to those numbers. But first, you need to understand what is actually happening to each of these materials once they go in the ground. Let's start with the steel, because the very first thing you need to know is that your galvanized raised bed probably is not galvanized. If you have bought a bed from Birdie's, Vigo, or most of the popular metal bed brands, you did not get a traditional zinc-coated galvanized panel. You got something called Aluzinc, which meets the ASTM-A792 specification and is a coating made of 55% aluminum, 43% zinc, and about 1.5% silicon. The aluminum forms a barrier layer on the surface, while the zinc provides sacrificial protection underneath. Think of it like this: the aluminum is a raincoat, and the zinc is a bodyguard. The raincoat keeps most of the damage away, and the bodyguard steps in when something gets through. This coating sits on steel panels that are about 0.6 millimeters thick, roughly 22 to 24 gauge. That is thin. And how long that thin panel lasts depends almost entirely on your soil. In sandy, well-drained, neutral pH soil, zinc depletes at under 5 micrometers per year. In heavy clay with acidic pH, high moisture, and chlorides, that rate jumps to 13 to 20 micrometers per year. The American Galvanizers Association projects 75+ years for structural steel in good soils, but structural steel carries a coating 5 to 7 times thicker than your garden bed panels. Scale that down, and you start to see why the real-world reports are all over the map. Now here is where it gets interesting. The warranty numbers tell a very honest story. Vigo warranties their beds for just 2 years and explicitly excludes rust and deterioration. Birdie's offers 5 years. Both companies market a 20+ year lifespan. That gap between a 2-year warranty and a 20-year marketing claim is the biggest credibility disconnect in the raised bed industry. But does rust actually matter for your food? And this is where the research took a genuinely surprising turn. The chemical that gardeners worry about most with metal beds, zinc, is actually one of the most important micronutrients in agriculture. Zinc is a structural component of over 300 enzymes in plants. It is essential for chlorophyll formation, growth regulation, and root development. And roughly half the world's cereal growing soils are zinc deficient. The trace amounts that leach from your bed walls are closer to a micronutrient supplement than a contaminant. the EPA sets the ecological soil screening level for zinc phytotoxicity at 160 milligrams per kilogram of dry soil. Natural background zinc in United States soils ranges from 10 to 300 parts per million, with a median around 50 to 60. And here is the critical detail. Zinc stays locked up in the soil at pH 6.5 and above. It only becomes highly mobile below pH 6. If you are maintaining your raised bed soil in the neutral range, which you should be doing for vegetables anyway, zinc mobility is minimal. Now, I do need to be honest about a research gap here. No peer-reviewed study has actually measured zinc accumulation inside galvanized raised beds over time. All the leaching data comes from infrastructure studies on culverts and storage tanks. The science strongly suggests it is safe, but the specific garden bed study has not been done yet. So steel rusts eventually and leaches a little zinc. What about cedar? Surely the natural option is the safe one. Cedar is safe. In fact, it is probably the safest of the three from a soil chemistry perspective. Dr. Linda Chalker-Scott at Washington State University has stated directly that there is virtually no documented evidence for allelopathic activity in western red cedar, which is Thuja plicata. The widespread fear that cedar kills nearby plants comes from confusion with eastern red cedar, which is actually a juniper and does show allelopathic effects on prairie species. Completely different tree. Your cedar raised bed is not hurting your tomatoes. But here's where the cedar story gets fascinating. The compound that everyone credits for cedar's famous rot resistance, thujaplicin, turns out to be a bit player in ground contact durability. A 2011 study published in Wood Science and Technology Journal found that thujaplicins were only weakly associated with decay resistance when cedar touches soil. The compound doing the heavy lifting is plicatic acid, a lignin that almost nobody in the gardening world talks about. This matters because plicatic acid concentrations vary enormously between individual trees, which helps explain why some cedar boards last 20 years, while others from the same lumber yard rot in 7. And that brings us to the single most important variable in cedar bed longevity. It is not the species, it is not the finish, it is board thickness, and whether you got heartwood or sapwood. The USDA Forest Products Laboratory rates Western red cedar heartwood as resistant or very resistant to decay, the highest domestic classification. But sapwood is rated very susceptible to fungal attack. And here is the problem. Lumber grading standards classify sapwood as not a defect. That means the $129 cedar kit you bought at the hardware store, the one with those thin 11/16" boards, very likely includes sapwood that will start showing soft spots within 3 to 5 years. Compare that to a bed you build yourself from 2-inch thick heartwood cedar. That bed, in a temperate climate with a gravel base and annual ceiling, can last 10 to 15 years. The difference between 5 years and 15 years comes down to about $50 more in lumber, and knowing what to look for at the lumber yard. If you're finding this useful, hit subscribe. We break down the science behind gardening every week, so you can grow more with less guesswork. Now let's talk about the material nobody seems to have strong opinions about: composite. Composite raised beds are the newest option, and they come with a problem that sounds small, but is actually huge. The market is so young that essentially no 10-year reviews exist. We are working with decking industry data and short-term garden reports, and honestly, the results are mixed. The first thing to understand is that composite is not one material. It is at least 3. Wood plastic composites like Frame It All blend roughly 40% plastic with 60% wood fiber. Pure recycled HDPE beds, like the ones from EarthEC, are 100% plastic. And then there are PVC, or polypropylene beds, from brands like Vita. This distinction matters because wood plastic composites are vulnerable to moisture absorption through the wood fibers, and accelerated weathering tests show they can lose up to 52% of their structural stiffness after prolonged UV and moisture exposure. Pure HDPE, on the other hand, is hydrophobic, rot-proof, and biologically inert. EarthEC backs their pure HDPE beds with a 50-year warranty. Frame It All's wood plastic composite gets a limited lifetime warranty with registration, but only 5 years without it. Virginia Tech Extension actually warns directly that composite lumber lacks the lateral strength of wood and will bend under soil pressure, potentially requiring cross-bracing on spans over 4 feet. That is not a fatal flaw, but it is something the marketing materials conveniently leave out. And then there is the environmental paradox. Trex alone diverts over 1 billion pounds of waste plastic from landfills every year. A single 500 square foot deck contains the equivalent of 140,000 recycled plastic bags. That sounds incredible. But composite lumber cannot be recycled at end of life. The wood fiber bonded to the plastic cannot be separated at scale, so you are taking recycled material and turning it into something that sits in a landfill forever, when it finally fails. Now let me show you the numbers that changed how I think about this entire comparison. Take a standard 4x8 foot bed, 12 inches deep, 32 square feet of growing space. Whether you're doing square foot gardening using Mel Bartholomew's method or any other layout system, these cost numbers will apply. A premium galvanized steel bed from Birdie's or Vego costs about $300 up front. Over 10 years, with zero maintenance and zero replacement, your total cost is $300. That is 94 cents per square foot per year. A DIY cedar bed, built from 2-inch heartwood, runs about $175 in lumber. Add $150 in sealer over the decade, and your 10-year total is $325. $1.02 per square foot per year. Competitive, but it requires you to actually seal the wood every year. A composite bed from Frame It All costs about $318, zero maintenance, 99 cents per square foot per year, almost identical to steel. But here is the trap. That $129 thin-board cedar kit from the hardware store, the one that looks like such a deal, needs replacing by year 6. When you add the replacement cost plus all that sealer, your 10-year total hits $458, $1.43 per square foot per year. The cheapest option at the register becomes the most expensive option in your garden by 53%. So which one actually wins? The honest answer is it depends on your climate and your root zone temperature requirements. If you garden in USDA zones 3 through 7 with well-drained soil and moderate rainfall, premium galvanized steel gives you the best combination of cost, longevity, and zero maintenance. The thermal conductivity issue is minimal in cooler climates and actually works in your favor in spring by warming soil 2 to 3 weeks earlier than wood. If you garden in zones 8 through 10 where summer temperatures regularly exceed 90 degrees, cedar's insulation advantage becomes significant. Steel conducts heat roughly 500 times faster than cedar. In practical terms, that creates an 8 to 10 degree hot edge along the walls of a metal bed on a hot day. That is enough to stop potato tuber formation entirely and push lettuce into bolting. Cedar's thermal conductivity is so close to soil itself that the bed wall essentially disappears from the heat equation. If you are in a hot climate, cedar is worth the maintenance, and if you want maximum theoretical lifespan with zero effort, pure HDPE composite is the play. Though you are buying a bet on a material with very little long-term field data, avoid wood-plastic blends for anything wider than 4 feet, unless you add cross-bracing. One thing I would never recommend, regardless of your climate, is a thin-board cedar kit. At $458 over 10 years compared to $300 for steel, the math simply does not work. Spend the extra money up front or build your own from thick heartwood. So now you understand the corrosion science behind steel beds, the wood chemistry that actually determines cedar's lifespan, and why composite is 3 different materials pretending to be one. Next week, I am breaking down the soil biology inside raised beds and why the first 2 inches of your fill are doing 80% of the work. Subscribe so you do not miss it. And if you want to go deeper on raised bed soil temperatures, that video is on screen right now.